All right, as they say, on to the next one. We are here with water. These have been really in depth, so it's taking quite a while to get through some of these. So I apologize. Hopefully, you guys enjoy hearing me talk about these. Here we go. First card in water is Ash, a 4 CP 8K common. When Ash attacks, draw a card. She is limited fodder. There's no way you play this over any other Ash in print. I actually quite like her for limited. I think it's a really neat design for a card to be able to generate value like this. And I do like cards that draw cards every turn. So, only other thing to say, actually, weirdly like the Revenant Wings artwork style. Yeah, I don't know. Ryoma Ito's stuff just kind of speaks to me, I guess, from his older work. Gao. So Gao is our first legend, category 6, job Wild Child. The category 6 isn't super relevant. You're not playing this in dedicated 6 deck. The cost required to cast Gao is reduced by 1 for each monster you control. Does not say it cannot become free. That is very relevant. There are a lot of monster decks that are getting to 15, 20 characters on the field. Gao is very likely to be free at all times in those decks. When Gao enters the field, choose a forward opponent controls. If its cost is equal to or less than the number of monsters you control, put it on the bottom of its owner's deck. This is great removal. If you're casting them for 1 CP, 2 CP, you're bottom decking, which is the strongest form of removal, forward for very low cost. Yeah. The last line of text, dull active Gao, choose a monster. Till the end of the turn, it also becomes a forward with 8,000 power. This seems a lot more situational than it actually is. Obviously, there's the meme stuff of I'm going to kill my opponent with Scale Toad, right? But if we dig a little deeper, this is the best removal that water has ever gotten for monsters. We talk about how monsters, because they're only monster subtype, it's actually quite difficult to remove them a lot of the time. And sure, making your opponent's forward into a monster, or monster into a forward is not, especially one with so much power, is not ideal. But if it makes it vulnerable, you feel pretty good. I think that last effect is actually like sneaky, really, really solid. Um, Being able to like cast this bottom deck of something and then like on the same turn make another monster vulnerable to removal is not to be slept on. There's a lot of monsters that your opponent will not want to play back on you if you can continuously remove them or bounce them. I'm thinking stuff like Scale Toad. Your opponent has a Scale Toad. If you go Gao, make the thing a monster, and then bounce it back to hand with a Trost or something, that Scale Toad is not coming back down. I think this card actually has like a lot of utility. It's super, super powerful. The mono art is great on it. This card is very, very good. Maybe one of the strongest legends in the set, to be quite honest, which is scary. Obviously, the Mono Earth Mira decks, the Mono Water Hippocampus decks, the Earth Water Monsters decks, all of them are going to love this card. It's fantastic. This card scares me a lot because I do not like playing against those decks because their goal is to turn off interaction as much as possible. Gao helps that game plan tremendously. Super, super powerful card. Kraken. So Kraken is the Stranger Paradise Water Mono payoff. Job Chaos. So when he enters the field, draw a card. Already really, really good. This is, I don't necessarily love that, but that's very nice. We definitely need the rest of the text for this card to be worth playing, though. When Kraken enters the field, it chooses a forward. If you control 7 or more Earth characters, it loses 10,000 power to the end of the turn. So the clear comparison here is Ash, and it's tricky. So there were situations in the past where you would revive with Lena, and either Leviathan wasn't in your break zone, or you were more. It was more important to kill one big thing than it was to bounce a bunch of small things. And in those situations, you could revive Ash with Lena and feel pretty good about it. And in those situations, Kraken is always better. I really like Kraken as a one of in a lot of water decks. It's just like an additional copy of Ash that just like so happens to be like a decent revival target with Lena. And 7 or more water characters is not difficult because every water deck is on Tomberries. They're on the blue worms, Echidna, the blue goose, all these like just very solid monsters that are not going away. And 10k reduction basically says that a forward dies when he enters the field. So I think that like it's weird. It's like a reverse of Marlith, where Marlith, like the generic effect in Marlith is stronger because it's like on rate for the removal. 5 CP draw a card on entry is not very good, but this one's mono payoff is by far the best of the non-lich mono payoffs. So I don't think it's going to be seen at more than one of, and probably will get cut from a lot of mono water decks. But it's not a bad card. Like genuinely a card that could see some amount of play. Sage. This is Rosa on a standard unit forward. 0 cost action ability, choose a forward, activate it, 4 CP, standard unit, 8k. This thing terrifies me. We've had a trend of just like not once per turn action abilities. Warrior of Light, Griever, somewhat Une. And those decks actually had a pretty big cost, especially like the Unes and the Warrior of Lights, because a lot of those decks wanted to be on Cecil. And Cecil does get a very significant boost from being able to play 1 CP Rosa. So now you can play both 1 CP Rosa and a like version of 4 CP Rosa in Sage. And as long as those action abilities you're getting are good value, which Une, Warrior of Light, and Griever are, this card is incredible, especially if you can, like, you know, if you have 2 of these on field, Griever is going to make your opponent discard, 3 cards on your turn and then 2 on theirs? That's so nuts. The downside is that you do have to pair this with something else. I think it's really good. This card scares me a lot, but it's not infallible. So it's just a very good standard unit. Sakagen, 1 cost monster, job Sakagen, category Stranger Paradise. These things were assholes in the game. Take it from a speedrunner. When Sakagen enters the field, choose a forward of cost 3 or less opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand. This is solid. It's going to compete with Quadav quite a bit, but it's not worse than Quadav. Quadav, if your opponent could get like something small they didn't care about, something like a Rosa on the field, Quadav loses a lot of effectiveness. Sakagen does allow you to pick what you want to get rid of and does hit up to 3 CP forwards. All of that is really nice. Problem is, bounce is weaker than put it into the break zone because your opponent still can cast the forward. They're getting a card back. But on a 1 CP card, that's a very decent trade-off. Second effect, 2 water, 1 and tap. Choose a forward to turn to its owner's hand. This is actually not bad either. This kind of turns it into a card in hand into a 1 CP Leviathan. But this is good utility. It bounces any size forward. It bounces your own forward. There are going to be times where you'll do Ash, Sakagen the Ash back to hand, Ash again, and you kill 2 things. So I really like this card. I don't know how much play it's going to see just because deck space is so tight. But I think both effects are very strong. I think even something like this with Gao, you could play this, reduce Gao's cost by 1, bounce the Gao back to hand, do the Gao thing again, and you feel pretty good about that, I think. So really, really solid card. Jed. So Jed's really cool. Jed is the party member Stranger Paradise. So again, these ones all need 1 other Stranger Paradise forward. If a Waterport or a Stranger Paradise forward you control is dealt damage, reduce the damage by 1,000 instead. This is fine. It's not amazing, but it's okay. Jed and Ash both have like kind of similar effects on this one. This one is probably weaker than, or not Jed and Ash, Jed and Neon. I like Neons just because extra damage is probably more valuable than damage reduction. Second effect, when Jed enters the field, choose a forward opponent controls. If you control 2 or more Stranger Paradise forwards, put it on the top of the owner's deck. I'd like it a little more if it lets you pick, but again, this is really, really solid. This is the best type of removal in the game, Spin to Deck is. If you can do damage that turn, then you can kind of prevent EX burst. You can prevent your opponent from replaying the card. You know what that point of damage is. The downside is that you probably need to play this with Jack, and then it's kind of like a 5 CP Spin to Deck, which is not a bad effect, but it's not amazing. And I feel like then you really need to pair this with either a Earth-Water deck, where you have Ash as a defense, like not a defensive, but like a proactive play, and then Jet is your defensive option, or Earth or Wind Water, which again, Sophia is your proactive option, and Jet is your defensive one. I think he's good, but I think him and Neon, just because they cost a little more than the other, like if they cost, this should cost 3.38. Same for Neon, and I would like them a lot more. And I think that wouldn't be even out of the question for where these cards would need to be like super super strong. But I think he's just good. Here's another one of our FF11 generals. This is Spring Serpent General Melee Aliapo. It's got the standard text for these cycle where if you have 2 or more of their color, cost reduced by 2. If it dies, you can draw a card, and then you can tap it to give 2 forwards 1,000 power and activate them. This is like a free forward, which is nice, but it only gets the power back when it dies. There is like a lot of value in the action ability. Again, being able to stack these activated ability effects is really, really powerful, but you also have to have exactly 2 forwards worth doing this with, which is not good. So I don't love this card. He's like fine, but I don't see many situations I would play him over Sage, just because Sage is so much faster. I don't need to wait a turn to get it off. And yeah. Theodore. Theodore is a 4 CP, 8k Prince, category 4. If you control a Cecil or Rosa, you can pay a crystal to cast Theodore. If you control Theodore or Rosa, the category 4 forward you control gain 1,000 power. Like, this is clearly meant to be like the DLC to the 4CP Cecil from last set. Problem is that Cecil is once per turn, and that means that if you're using Edge, which you probably are, Edge probably is consuming your crystal when he comes in. Rosa, like, all those cards are probably consuming the crystal already. So this is just like burn a crystal, gain a crystal, and then like give your forwards a 1k buff. And I don't really think that either of those are good enough to be worth seeing play, to be honest. I don't know. I would rather play like the old Wind Theodore and get something out of my card rather than just like a very slight power boost and a discounted cost to play. And I don't think in that deck you're swimming in crystals to the point where it's like, oh yeah, I'll burn a crystal to play Theodore. No, you're only doing that if you have Earth Cecil on, Water Cecil on field with an active trigger where it's like, I want to get that on the thing. If you play this stuff in the break zone for the crystal, I would be a lot more on board with this card. But as is, I really don't like this card very much. I just don't think it's very high impact, and I want my cards in that Earth Water 4 deck to be very high impact because the quality of cards in that deck is very good at the point where even Edge is almost hard to fit in, I feel like sometimes. So I don't really like this card very much. Astrologian, 3CP backup, category 14. When enters the field, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Put 1 in your hand, 1 on the top of your deck, 1 on the bottom of your deck. It's good. It's worse Laporit with like slightly different text, but given that Laporit is a meta-defining backup, more copies of Laporit is good. This is maybe even better than Laporit in the early game. You can dig a little deeper to find the next backup you want to play, right? You also have the ability to shuffle your deck if you have, like, potentially before you draw your card, which is really cool. You can stack an EX burst from them if you think you're going to take damage next turn. You can also pay 2 and sacrifice them to draw a card, much like Laporit. I think there's a very real possibility that next set in mono water decks you go 3 Laporit, 3 Astrologian, 3 of the Alchemist, and then like 3 Lena or something, or like 3 Sarah, 2 Lena, and call your backups done. I think this card is very, very good. Dash. If a character's control or opponent controls return the opponent's hand, it was reduced by 3, so it becomes, instead of a 5 CP 9k, it becomes a 2 CP 9k. This is not enough. I wish that like for each character it was reduced by 3, so like you could cast them for free. But it's not, and instead we're just kind of left with some like really, really sick art, but not really a card that I think anyone's going to be super jazzed to play. Category synergy isn't there. Yeah. Paladin, this is the fast land cycle for water. Water does get some extra benefit out of this just because of Glaciella, and also Water Lightning Scions is potentially a deck you would consider. And Category 14 backups are a premium in Scions thanks to Grahatia. But you know from reading these already what I think of them. Ninja, this is another standard unit, Category 14. Back attack. I don't know if we have any standard units with back attack before. Before paying the cost to cast Ninja, you can pay a crystal to reduce the cost by 3. This is really good. Again, the expected going rate of a crystal is 1.5 CP. This is getting you effectively double the value out of that one crystal that you're using. When Ninja enters the field, choose a forward opponent controls. We're going to turn it to its owner's hand. So 5 CP is way too much for this, but 3 CP is, or 2 CP is not bad at all. And actually, this could go as low as 1 CP. Ninja does play crystal generating backups, and it does play edge to color fix this. It's very possible this costs 1 CP in a Ninja deck. And for 1 CP, this attack is great. Back attack is one of the strongest keywords in the game, and it's very fitting for a Ninja to have back attack. I'm actually like weirdly excited for this common. I think it's like a lot better than people think it is. But it is a common, so to me, anytime a common, especially a standard unit forward, has a chance to see play, I get a little bit excited because it doesn't happen all that often. So, cool card. Bikke, Pirates, Savvy. So, Bikke is Pirate and Viking support. There's 2 cards that have this, or 3 cards this set that do this. Big push this set towards the archetype. If you control 2 or more pirates, Bikke is free. The job pirates and Vikings you control on the Bikke do not take damage from abilities. This allows you to protect them from board wipes, which is cool. Bikke himself is still vulnerable. The text is fine. It's not a reason. I mean, it is a reason to play the card, but it's not like the main thing is just that it's a free body in Vikings/Pirates, which is already going to be a pretty aggro deck. And being able to protect them from Luso board wipes, not bad. That said, I don't think it's enough by itself to make Vikings or Pirates a meta contender. But it's also very easy to get 2 Vikings on the field. Traditionally, Layla Viking does it. The Cascade Viking into any other Viking does it. And I have the hiccups, which is going to make the rest of the video very fun. So, yeah, solid card. Ferris, here is our other legend, and she's a very weird one. So, forward, Pirate, Warrior of Light, Mobius 5, 4 CP, 8k. No entry effect. Already a little bit scary. So she has to do something very crazy. Sadly, she's not Warrior of Light support. The power of the forwards, or the Pirate and Viking forwards other than Ferris you control becomes 8,000. So there's a common phrase in card games, especially constructed ones that have had a lot of sets, which is power does not matter, power does not matter, power does not matter. Except power kind of does matter a lot, and this isn't like a small anthem. This isn't giving your Vikings and Pirates 1,000 power. This is giving them 5,000 power, 6,000 power, 7,000 power. This is like a size of a boost that we just do not see in the game. This is taking these cards that are extremely undercosted because the bodies are so small, and giving them a actual useful body. How useful is that by itself? Are we paying 4 CP for that? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I think that she is very solid for that. I think that 8k is also just a weird number because you still are going to die to Hecaton Shear, which is still the premier board wipe of the format right now other than Shantoto. However, in that situation, you should at least draw off of your Vikings, which is cool. She also has, I think, one of the funniest action abilities. Choose a summon or ability that's choosing only Ferris. You may choose another water forward you control. So you get this like great mental image of like Ferris as this like pirate captain, directing her pirates or whatever, and then like she gets like targeted and she like just kicks one in front of her to like block her. But there's some really cool things you can do with this. So because when you redirect, you are actually causing new targets. This does mean that, like, if they have to pay a tax with like a Cecil or something, they have to pay the tax again. And if you redirect to a Tidus, that counts as their forward, choosing your Tidus so you can do the flip kick. You can choose something like a Fiend on damage 3, and the Fiend will cancel it because it was choosing him. So there's a lot of like really interesting things that we can do with this protection effect, which is good because Ferris will have a target on her back because she's making her Vikings big enough to actually attack you. And Vikings in the past traditionally had to run a card like the 4CP Snow backup just to like actually threaten damage. The bodies were so small that like anything could chump block them. So I think there's a lot of like interesting things that Ferris enables and does, but where are Vikings and Pirates in the Year of Our Lord 2023 anyway? I don't know. I love the art. I love the concept. But we're playing with a lot of very, very old, bad cards to make this Ferris work. And I don't know that the payoff is worth it. Larsa. Larsa is a common backup, 4CP Emperor, category 12. When it enters the field, search for a forward of cost 4 or more, add it to your hand. Wow. Every deck plays 4CP forwards in the history of time. This card is really good. This is like a very solid one of in basically every water deck ever going forward. Searches Ash, searches Leviathan, searches Tidus in Sky Pirates, although I think you would still run 2CP Larsa in that deck. Searches the Fiend in matchups where that's good. Like 4CP is, or forwards is almost every relevant deck ever will have this be live. Really, really versatile, good card. The only downside is that like Marrowweb does exist in water, so it's not hard to get access to your water forwards. But maybe you're in like, I don't know, Wind Lightning or Water Lightning, and now you search Thancred with this. You're in Water Lightning and you search Alize now with Larsa. You can search a Une in Earth Water. You can search Warrior of Light in Earth Water. Just really good, really versatile. Super, super nice card to have in the format. Leviathan. So here is our hero water summon, and it's a really interesting one. So during your turn, cost required to cast Leviathan is reduced by 2. That's interesting. This shares text with Bahamut. Choose a forward, put it on the bottom of its owner's deck, then you may play a forward of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field. Wow. We actually already have a 4CP Leviathan that stacks forwards, or shuffles them into the deck. But that one had a cost restriction, and this one now has a timing restriction, but a bonus effect on top of it. So then the only question is, how often are we going to get the value out of the forward of cost 2 or less? And how often are we willing to pay the extra 2 on cast on our opponent's turn? In Refia, probably a lot for both of those. This is the best Refia Palimporum card in a long time. And it fixes actually a big problem for Refia, which was how do we consistently clear those big forwards our opponent was sticking down? Well, now we have a very efficient, clean removal that doesn't even proc floating effects for anything. There's almost nothing that floats when shuffled into the deck, other than Tidus, I suppose. And play a forward of cost 2 or less from your hand out of the field, fantastic. That plays out your 2CP Porum, that plays out Sarah Mobius to cause a fight, plays out your Sophies, it plays out Rosa. Just lots of really, really solid cards. You can do a lot of very creative things. You could play Zidane with this in a deck and look at your opponent's hand and rip a card out. That's very stupid, but it's a thing you can do in like a 4-color deck. And you can do it on your opponent's turn at instant speed. Absolutely a very interesting card. The biggest thing is just how many of this are we willing to play? Maybe 1 or 2 of, especially in decks that have like a lot of summon recursion. Definitely like a 1 of in a deck with Une. Like this seems so good in those situations, but we'll see. Roose. Roose is category FFBE, 6 CP, 9k. The cost required to cast Roose is reduced by 1 for each card you've drawn this turn, cannot become 0. I don't know why they put that last bit of text on there. If you can draw 6 cards on your turn, you deserve to get a free cast forward on the field. I'm sorry. I mean, it's nice. He's always going to be at least 4 CP unless you try to cast on the very first turn of the game going first. Only going down from there. It's not that hard to draw 2 cards over the course of your turn. Pairs very well with a card like Moogle or Poo Poo. That's really cool. I don't think it's like an all-star or anything. The only other text in the card, discard a card, remove it from the game, play it onto the field at the end of the turn. No entry effects. Not a lot that even will benefit from him entering. So it's nice that you have this like card that's going to be very difficult to remove. You can play him, attack if he gets threatened or removed from the game. But like you're still kind of discarding a card to do it every time, which can be rough. So I don't think too much of him, but it is like not a bad card at all. It's going to be very hard for your opponent to remove this guy, and because he is a 9K, if you have they're attacking with an 8K, you can block with Roose if they like threaten the combat trick, get Roose out of the game, so on and so forth. So cool card. Layla, this is one of our heroes, 3 CP, 4K, job pirate rebel. Very rough name for pirates, I will say. When Layla enters the field, you can search for a pirate or Viking added to your hands. Very nice. And when a water forward you control attacks, choose a forward your opponent controls, it loses 1,000 power till the end of the turn. So, the big question here is how does she compare to the previous Layla? So, previous Layla was like the reason to play Layla Viking. Layla Viking is a term for a reason, right? And this searches for Vikings or pirates, which is cool. Gets your Ferris, gets your Bikke, gets your Cascade Viking. All of that's really cool. Makes Layla kind of a 1 CP forward, which is kind of where Vikings want to be. But you really are going to miss that Breakzone reanimation. Maybe you could do something like run White Mage from this set to like really kind of smooth that out a little bit. But that does mean that your Vikings, when they hit the Breakzone, they hit the Breakzone maybe now. When a water forward you control attacks, choose a forward and like reduce its power by 1,000. I feel like this only really matters with Ferris on the field because it kind of makes all of your Vikings like an extra 1K bigger. And 9K is a lot bigger than 8K. But like the whole point of them is that like they're already like fine. I don't know. It's never removing a forward by itself. Maybe you could like pair this with like a Hippocampus and like a big cleave and then like attack and like kill something by like death of 1,000 cuts. I don't know. I almost thought that could have been like 2 or 3K, and I still don't think it really would improve my rating of the card very much. If Vikings are good, maybe Layla is a reason why, just because I feel like Bikke and Lena are probably like mission critical to the deck and they don't have great searchers otherwise. I guess you could go like Arya to search Lena or King Tycoon. And I feel like Vikings probably going to need like the Opus 8 Warrior of Light hero to be a good card or a good deck, but we'll see. Lena. This is maybe the best card in water this set. So 2 CP, EX Burst backup. Job, Princess, Warrior of Light. Holy moly. Talk about relevant jobs. Princess means she's searchable by Sarah, which is really, really good. Warrior of Light means that she pairs well with Refia, also really good. Yeah, those are both extremely good. The name Lena is now extremely relevant as well. There's a old King Tycoon backup in Opus 3, Job King, so searchable by both Claris in Earth and Sarah in Water. That can search for a name Lena that has EX Burst. That card now is all of a sudden stonks. Like, you can go Sarah to King Tycoon to Lena and have one backup that cascades into 3 in the same manner as Chocobo Sam if you're in Water Wind. You now have a Earth backup that cascades into either a Fire backup or a Wind backup that gets a Water backup. Both of those are really, really powerful and really, really cool. And then 2 CP backup with Upside is crazy here. When your opponent uses an EX Burst, draw a card. I first read this, I kind of chuckled. I was like, oh, ha ha ha, punish EX Burst from your opponent. How often does that matter? And then my opponent had this on the field, and I hit a Cucullin into damage, and I go, oh. Let me tell you, those like draw 1 EX bursts are a lot worse when they say both players draw a card. We complain a lot about how like Chocolate breaks the game by being a 2 CP backup that draws 3 cards over the course of a game. Lena could very easily do the same thing. This card is very, very strong. kind of disabling EX burst. Your opponent will still probably take a lot of them, but you'll get value back from them, which is really cool. And then we have a special even. So we have an EX burst backup that we want to run 3 of with a really potent special. Special Water 1, or Water Tap herself. So for a 2 CP summon, essentially, choose a forward of class 3 less in your break zone, play it onto the field dull. No timing restrictions, no nonsense, no nothing. You can do this on your opponent's turn. You can do it during your turn. You can revive a Zidane to rip the best card out of their hand. You can revive a Refia and then activate the Refia with her own ability at the start of your combat phase to continue to go off. You can, like, 3 CP forward is such a blank slate. You can do anything with that. You can revive a Ceramobius to force a fight. You can revive a Shulk to play a 2 CP forward out of your hand and force your opponent to discard. Words. The only downside of this card is the name Lena is obviously the best card in mono water, but you just don't play this in mono water. Like, any deck that's not playing that Lena is going to be on 3 copies of this card. Get 3 of this in foil. This is like Sarah to Electric Boogaloo. This card is insanely good. I love it when a mono art backups are this good, because, like, I don't know, I just get a lot of joy out of seeing good mono cards in the game. Lastly, we have Refia. White Mage, category Waff. When Refia enters the field, choose a category Waff forward of cost 4 less and break zone, play it onto the field, and then you can tap or sack her to reduce a damage dealt to the next forward by 3k. If she was in a better color, I would like her a lot more. There's just not really a reason to play any Waff in water. So, like, you have to, like, find a generic you want to play. Maybe like the Waff twins from Opus 16, but those were not good enough at the time to pay for 3. I certainly don't think they're good enough to pay 5 for and get Mistdragoned. So, it's a decent card. Like, there's definitely a future for her potentially, but for now, I'm not super high on this one. And that's it for water. I've got one more set review, light, dark, and starter. Don't go anywhere.